You've all heard the latest update for the Reinkstone and the Topjoy, but if you haven't, here it is, another delay. Though we were essentially promised some sort of release last year in 2021, one full year later, and the devices are still nowhere near ready for the mainstream or their backers. WeWood Group is the company responsible for creating the Whiskey ENKNOTE back in 2019, the Reinkstone and the Topjoy altogether. In 2020, the Whiskey ENKNOTE brought in $400,000 in sales in a successful Kickstarter campaign, and $620,000 on Indiegogo at the same time. Following that, the Reinkstone brought in $1 million on Kickstarter, and the Topjoy subsequently brought in an additional $700,000. Following that, they doubled down on their campaigns, and the Topjoy brought in an additional $83,000 on Campfire, and the Reinkstone brought in a whopping $330,000 on Green Funding Japan, bringing their grand total of successful campaigns to over $3.2 million US. All us tech sites tried to give them the best benefit of the doubt, but we basically can tell you guys that you're not likely getting your products anytime soon. But if you want to know how the DES slurry technology has held up over the past year, and what the devices are like to use, stay tuned to this video as both the distribution company and the manufacturer of the screens themselves are completely legitimate. The DES screen technology is a real thing. It is manufactured by a company in China called Weifeng and distributed by Good Display, who is actually a vendor on Good eReader's website. In fact, on the Good Display website, you can purchase the DES screens. The screens themselves are completely real and are a very current and updated technology. So first thing is, how did the devices hold up after an entire year? Granted, we didn't use them a lot of the time because, well, they basically just went dark and stopped all support or emails with us of any kind, so we no longer have really any connection with them. So the pens did not last very long. The pen for the Reinkstone, the eraser no longer works, it doesn't push down, and the tips just kind of fall out to the point where they're actually gone, and we don't really know what tips fit in them. The standard Wacom tips do not fit in them anymore. The Topjoy is not really that great either, as it uses a proprietary tip, and the tips don't really stay in either. As you can see, I can pull them out with nothing but my fingertips when typically you require a nib removal tool. That's number one. Number two, they're made out of plastic, so they don't offer a great writing experience. And number three, the eraser at the back doesn't do anything. So the pens themselves didn't last very long. Now there is a plus. You can use other pens on this. Because this is using Wacom, you don't have to be bound by any sort of proprietary pens because there isn't any. You can actually just use anything. As you can see here, I'm using an iReader Smart 3 pen, and this is the brand new one they offer, and you can see you can take all the notes you want very easily, so there's no drawbacks with that. The Topjoy definitely has not aged well, and we'll tell you why. If you turn on the light, it will all become apparent, and also when you do the drop down, you can see that it doesn't really prioritize over the note-taking screen. You can see I don't really know what I'm looking at. I have my drop down mixed in behind everything. So looking at this, we have some spottiness at the top and at the bottom, and most importantly, the side has started to peel away from the actual device unit itself. So you can see in here, there's a massive gap between the actual housing and the screen itself. And that's happening on the bottom and the top right corner as well, with a little bit of separation in glue. There is some separation in glue down here as well, as you can see, so this is actually peeling away. And this hasn't been taken out into the field or exposed to any weird temperatures of any kind. Also, the OS seems to be degrading in that it's not really too stable. I can't really see what I'm interacting with most of the time. And also, the OS is a little bit broken. You can see that should say 1 out of 2, not 2 out of 1, and then 2 out of 2. So they actually didn't reverse that, as we kind of suggested to them early on when we were all nice and friendly with each other. Since then, they have had zero communication with us or any other known reviewer of these products as we can see it. How does this kind of reflect down into the device itself? Well, to be completely honest, the Reinkstone hasn't really been affected by any sort of longevity. Now, they have slowed down. As you can see, this is just endlessly loading. I haven't done anything here, and it won't really proceed to do anything else. The Reinkstone seems to be moving along a little bit better, as we kind of believe that Reinkstone was the guy that was going to be the release. The Topjoy just seemed like a cash grab, as it was the third device from WeWood. The Reinkstone definitely did feel like it was going to come out, but it never ended up doing that. It isn't the best experience, and everything has become a lot slower since day one. And to be completely honest, the staining is still fairly prominent. You can go over to files, you can kind of search the device storage. Everything takes 2 or 3 taps because the OS is not really refined. That finally loaded after a minute and a half. You can open up something like a PDF. From here, you can start to take notes on the screen, and you can see that the operating system hasn't really kept up with anything. I actually don't know why that's so faded. In fact, it won't really allow me to change anything. It seems to be glitching out here, and it says please wait, and it crashed. So screen aside, the screen technology is still sound, and we do know some prototypes that are using the DES screen, so that's not the screen's fault necessarily. It's the way that it's programmed. This is not programmed very well, either of these two. Everything is fairly slow and sluggish and choppy, and it's just crashing, and everything's just not moving, and it's just not right. They're just broken head to toe, but multiple taps, 5, 6, 7 taps to do anything, to open anything, it's just not, it's not something you want. Here's an example of the actual screen. The screen is fantastic. DES is a good technology, and it is a very viable alternative to e-ink. It really is. But you need a company with a backbone, you need a company to refine that, and you need a company to make it work simply. That's what it all comes down to. Outside of some select reviewers, we have heard very, very few reports of people actually having received their products. If you are one of the very few people out there, consider yourselves lucky. But as for everyone else who donated to the campaigns, likely you aren't going to see your products anytime soon. For GoodyReader.com, this is Peter.